Hey everybody, welcome to an earlier than normal live stream. We actually have multiple streams today scheduled, in fact, and I'm going to tell you about those in a moment. I want to make sure all of my graphics are working. Yes, they seem to be. So here's what's going on. We're going to talk about a lot of different things today. We're keeping an eye on 3 different streams. This was a haphazard early morning press briefing. This is typically not the time when these press briefings happen. I have a sense of why they're doing it early, and I'm going to talk to you about that. In a moment, I will answer super chats via YouTube and messages that come along with subscriptions over on Twitch as we wait for the start of this. And of course, so last night I had a stream with Eric Rosen, and I mentioned this is not about that, but of course we know about the just tragedy of the passing of fellow progressive host Michael Brooks, and I said I would be discussing it today. And I did. We've already recorded today's podcast and YouTube clips, and I talk about really just the whole story with Michael Brooks. So we're meeting him 10 years ago and him saying he's interested in getting into what I'm doing, and knowing Sam Seder is always looking for good people and introducing him to Sam Seder. And, the rest is history. From that point forward, most of you guys know the trajectory that took place there. I see Left is Best Matthews sending a super chat saying, "Rest in peace, Michael Brooks." Yes, indeed. So I'm glad to talk about that to the extent people, have questions or whatnot, but I've recorded like a segment about that already. It's going to be on our podcast today, which drops at 3 p.m. Eastern. The clip will be out later and all of that. Majority Report putting out a statement about it yesterday. And of course, before these things go public, the text messages and the phone calls are flying. And I had listen, it's one of these things is about falling out of touch with people. We've all been kind of in our own bubbles during coronavirus in the last 24 hours, tragically, as a result of what happened with Michael Brooks. I talked to Kyle Kalinsky, who I hadn't talked to in a while. I talked to Benjamin Dixon. I was in touch with Farron Cousins from Ring of Fire. I was in touch with Sam Seder, obviously. I was in touch with, a lot of the behind the scenes people that you may not know from watching these shows, but who are friends of mine. My takeaway is let's not fall out of touch with people. And I'm going to talk more about, I feel like it's important because everybody is so focused on it, as we should be. I'm not ignoring the topic of Michael Brooks. We talked about it yesterday, today on the show, and I'm glad to talk about it here as well. But today's event is this Kayleigh McEnany press briefing scheduled for the top of the hour. And so today is an insane day because we've already filmed today's show for the podcast and YouTube. I'm doing this stream now as we approach 11 a.m. here on the East Coast. At 5 p.m. today, Eastern, I'm going to be back with another stream, but that's not even the last stream today. This is what's crazy. At 5 p.m. today, Donald Trump is restarting the daily coronavirus press briefings, or semi-daily. And this clearly is out of panic. Now, I have a segment today on the show called "A Desperate Trump is a Dangerous Trump." And Donald Trump is increasingly desperate because he is losing in the polls. And thus, that is going to represent a lot of danger. Now, the other day, Kellyanne Conway said the reason Trump's polling is down is because he's not doing daily press briefings. The daily press briefings are what started this problem, where he talked about injecting bleach and isopropyl. So I don't think Trump restarting these press briefings is going to help his poll numbers. But needless to say, it is clearly an act of desperation, and they are restarting today. So I'm going to be back probably about 4:30 p.m. Eastern with that press briefing. And then tonight, as you know, I have been announced as a participant in the chess.com PogChamps 2 tournament. And last week I had a lesson with one of my coaches, Levy Rosman. I'm being informally advised by international master Eric Rosen, and we had a stream last night. And tonight I will be streaming with my second official coach, Alexandra Botez, and that's going to be tonight. I don't even know when. We were originally going to do it at 6 p.m. Eastern, but now with the Trump press briefing back, we're probably pushing it back. Alexandra said just to text her when I'm sort of ready to go. So this is the first of 3 streams today, plus the show. So this may actually be the day on which we do more content than on any other single day that we've done really since the impeachment hearings. Now, let me just ban some people. I'm seeing trolling as well as anti-Semitism and just mean-spirited comments, both in YouTube and Twitch. So we're going to drop the ban hammer on a bunch of people. People are asking about daily schedule, like Schreiss is asking about this. I never do a daily schedule. Every day is so different. So no, we're going to be taking it day by day. But today, I'm here now. We've got an hour podcast coming out and clips. And then, of course, we will also have the press briefing at 5, and then my stream with Alexandra Botez later on in the day. So a lot certainly going on. Now, listen, in the meantime, coronavirus continues to rage. I don't know, half the country seems to not be paying attention to it anymore. But yesterday we had another 63,000 cases. Now, importantly, there's people who said, oh, David, yesterday deaths were down to 546. Understand that deaths are always down on Monday because of reporting. And in fact, it was the worst Monday in a long time. So yesterday, 545. If you look at Monday the 13th, 465. If you look at Monday the 6th, 378. If you look at Monday the 30th? 29th? Or maybe it was the 28th, 285. So the point is, if you just compare Mondays, we've been having worsening Mondays where you have less data from the weekend. And that pattern had gone all the way down to about the beginning of July. And now every week we are seeing more and more total cases. Sometimes looking at a 3-day moving average is useful. And you see that the peaks are starting to climb. And then you have your 7-day moving average, which shows us that from around July 6th, it's been sort of straight up. Now, fortunately, we do still have some states that are doing well. And again, I'm not bragging about Massachusetts, but I'm just, this is part of a package of states that has been staying under 300 cases a day. And that's a really good thing. And listen, really, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are the days where we get the most extensive data. So, is today as a Tuesday going to be worse than last Tuesday versus the previous Tuesday? That's sort of what we're going to be paying attention to. And we'll know, in 7 hours or something like that. I see some super chats coming in. I also see people signing up over on Twitch. I want to say thanks to Laser Angel, who has subscribed and sends the message. Rest in peace, Michael Brooks. Yes, indeed. Simple Zach has subscribed with Prime and says, always enjoy your live streams. Keep them coming. And Wafer has also subscribed with Prime, which I appreciate. Over on YouTube, Leica says, no message, just love and support to the David Pakman Show friends and family. Stay safe, everyone. Stay safe, everyone. Yeah, good message. Mart Fillion says, I bet Kayleigh is going to announce when the army will take over the country. Immanuel Kant says, hey, David, Toby here, love from Frankfurt, Germany. Bolo Turner says, I found Sam Cedar and Michael Brooks shortly after finding your show years ago. While I didn't know him personally, it hurts to know a person who was a force of good is gone. Rise in power, Mr. Brooks. Yeah, and if you're just joining us, we're not ignoring the Michael Brooks topic. I've already recorded. I hate to call it a sort of eulogy in a sense. And it'll be on today's podcast and it'll be on today's YouTube channel. And it is a tragedy. It is a tragedy. Samuel Lopez says, David, ¿quién es tu boxeador argentino favorito? Matiz Maidana. I don't really, this is about my favorite Argentinian boxer. I'm not a boxing fan, so I couldn't tell you my favorite American boxer, Argentinian boxer, or any of it. Sean M says, David, how often do you receive amorous DMs or emails from adoring fans? Do you disclose the nature of these messages to your girlfriend? That's a little bit private. That's very, very private. I don't know that I can really go into that. Azim Abu Khalil says, rest in peace, Michael Brooks. Despite my very conflicted feelings on the guy, he seemed to be a genuinely nice person who touched the lives of so many. Yeah, listen, I mean, I didn't agree with Michael Brooks on a lot of political things, and that's fine. I think the idea, though, is that as he saw it, his priority was to improve life for people through activism. And even if we didn't see eye to eye on every individual issue, it's really a loss for the community. And I think that that's the most important thing I can say. I'm expanding on this later, of course, on the regular show. Blakey Eats Steaky, okay, has subscribed with Prime over on Twitch, which I very much appreciate. If you've been missing my chess lesson streams on Twitch, make sure to follow at twitch.tv/David Pakman. Very, very important stuff. We are here just standing by for Kayleigh McEnany. This was, again, one of these abruptly scheduled 11 a.m. Quick, we've got to do an 11 a.m. press briefing. We have things to tell you. I assume she'll come out and give us 90 seconds of BS before not answering questions. Then I will be back at roughly 4:30 p.m. Eastern this afternoon, for the Trump coronavirus press briefing, which is restarting today. And then I will be back even later with a third stream for the day with Alexandra Botez, continuing my chess training for PogChamps 2. And right on cue, we have an incoming hype train over on Twitch, where we have failed to hit level 5 a couple of times, but Jaku Jetty has subscribed with the message, "Thanks for doing what you do. Enjoy the show." Thank you. I appreciate that support. Crypto Monkey says, your Australian allies await a return to sanity in the USA in November. Love from down under. Thank you. And Zero3385 says, thoughts on Trump's recent patriotic mask wearing tweet? It's desperation. This is desperation. So, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Properly dealing with coronavirus from day one would have avoided Trump being in the desperate position he's in now, where he's losing by anywhere from 3, according to right-wing pollster Rasmussen, up to 15, according to multiple other polls. Now Trump has to go crazy talking about the mask as patriotic. Now Trump has to restart daily coronavirus press briefings, which I believe hurt him more than they helped. So it's all desperation. Trump is cornered and desperate. And I have a piece today about what the dangers are of an increasingly cornered Donald Trump as we wait for today's press briefing. Jamal Swift says, hey, homie, how's life otherwise? Hanging in there, Jamal. Great to see you. Jamal's been around the streams for a long time. Always great to see him. Yeah, I mean, it's day at a time right now. A lot of things happening. 2020 has not really been like the best year so far. I think a lot of us would probably agree with that. And, even though this is one of those things where it's like, my show is doing great, and obviously I'm glad for that. It's growing faster than it has in a long time, and that's great. But there's so much suffering going on. We lost Michael Brooks yesterday, tragically. Close to 1,000 people a day on average are dying again from coronavirus. A lot of bad things are going on, and my goal is that I'm having a horizon of let's start to turn it around in November. I don't know. People are asking if there's any stream that's in the room right now. I would imagine one of these two, Fox or USA Today, would go live as soon as there's action in the room, so to speak. But if anybody knows of one that is already live in the room, by all means, let me know. Matty Ice says, hey, David, what do you like about gardening? P.S. I didn't always agree with Michael Brooks, but he was as honest and authentic as they come. Very sad. Well said. Yeah, I mean, I just like gardening because it's the exact opposite of what my work is. Same reason I like chess. It's just a completely different framework in which to operate, and something totally different to learn and understand. So it's good to get a break from politics every once in a while. I don't expect that this is going to be a particularly long press briefing, partially because Donald Trump also has on his schedule at 12:15 p.m. Eastern, which is in just a little over an hour, signing a memorandum. And my guess is that this press briefing is to urgently tell us what is going to be in that memorandum. But we will soon see, and we will learn very much about it, I'm sure. I do want to say thank you to L. O'Donoghue, who has just grabbed a membership at joinpacman.com and is new member number 1 today at joinpacman.com. Few other super chats coming in. Javi Rodriguez says it was heartbreaking to see the Majority Report crew find out about Michael on air and have to end the show early. He was so smart and funny, and he will be missed. Yes, haunting, I would call that video clip from Sam's show yesterday. Keneal Shah says, need my daily dose of DP. Oh, my goodness. Matt Chavez says, will you be touching on the false notion that people with pre-existing conditions who die shouldn't be counted or aren't serious in an upcoming segment? No, I've already talked about that. I mean, listen, I even have some friends who are on YouTube sharing stuff like someone died in a car crash and they tested positive for coronavirus and they were considered a coronavirus death. Listen, here's the reality. We can tell the difference between normal people can tell the difference between what should count as a coronavirus death and what should not. If you have diabetes, which is known to be an aggravating condition for coronavirus, and you get coronavirus and you get put on a ventilator and you die, that's a coronavirus death. If you die in a car accident and were asymptomatic and later test positive for coronavirus, that doesn't seem to me like it gets at the heart of what a coronavirus death is. And I think most of us can understand the difference between those. Mike Valverde says, how is the blue wave looking for taking over Congress in 2020? Well, the Democrats have the House. I don't know if you mean the Senate. If you mean the Senate, I have a bunch of clips about that you can look at. Seth Barham says, David, how urgent is this briefing on a scale of 1 to DEFCON 5? This briefing is so urgent that OAN is going to get to ask a question. Let me put it that way. Nick XRP de la Paz has signed up at the soy boy level. Ognin Slavkovsky says, hey, David, I'm increasingly worried if Biden wins about a possible competent Trump-like protectionist winning in 2024. I don't think the Democrats have learned from 2016. Let's take it a step at a time. Rakim says, David, love the show. Keep independent media alive. Janelle says, does covering the news ever give you anxiety? And if so, how do you manage it? Well, I have scheduled breaks. So basically, I'm increasingly going in the direction of Monday through Thursday are when I'm like deep in politics. And then Friday, I'm basically doing the business stuff for the show, which is really not super political. And then weekends, I try to tune out altogether. So basically, my goal is 3 out of 7 days, I'm not even following politics. Now, then I go and talk to my mom on Saturday and she wants to talk about politics and I don't. And that's a whole scene, which I've described to some before. But that's a story maybe for a different day. Hi, Mom, if you're watching, of course. We are 5 minutes past the scheduled start time for today's press briefing. Does anybody know if anybody is live in the room right now? Like sometimes Washington Post is live in the room or sometimes it's Now This. I didn't find anybody that was live in the room, but everybody seems to say there is nobody with a live shot of the room right now. No one I've seen is live yet. So that's not a good sign. Global is live in the room. I don't know what Global is. Let's see. Global, Kayleigh, McEnany. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Here's a Bloomberg video. Let me see if Bloomberg might be live in the room. But I am not seeing that. C-SPAN has the room. Okay. Let's see that. C-SPAN. Here we go. I'm just verifying it before I put a whole bunch of stuff on screen. Past live streams. I don't even see a C-SPAN live stream at all right now, unfortunately. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. C-SPAN. McEnany. Let's see. Yeah, I can't even find that live stream, unfortunately. So that's not working for me. Now This News. Okay, let's try that. Now This press briefing. Live now. All right. Here we go. I'm hoping you guys are going to come through for me. Oh, we've got an ad. Hold on a second. We will watch that. Jared Hunter asks, will OAN give Trump his own show if he is voted out? Sure. Why not? They are live on YouTube. It's all YouTube. We're all watching YouTube here. Okay. Very good. All right. So it seems like things are getting closer. Nobody else yet. Very good. So we'll stick with Now This for now, or Now News, or whatever it is that they're called. Very good. Standing by for the start of this press briefing. Other super chats coming in. Michael Blanco says, important to remember that if another country develops a vaccine, Trump will try to take credit for it to fool voters, and many will be tricked. I have a story that I'm planning for Friday where I am going to talk about what could turn polling around for Trump. And somebody else doing something on coronavirus and Trump taking credit for it is certainly something he's going to try. No doubt about it whatsoever. Leftist Best Matthew says, Michael Brooks introduced a lot of people to an alternative to capitalism. Will you ever bring people like Richard Wolff on now? I've interviewed Richard Wolff. It must be 15 or 20 times. He was my professor at the University of Massachusetts. Always glad for Professor Brooks, Wolff, rather, to be on. And yes, he was a frequent guest with Michael Brooks. Crazy Hawaiian signs up on Twitch and says, thanks for the company during the crazy lockdown. Of course. TPD says, hey, David, what bad movie do you like as a guilty pleasure? Blue Chips with Shaquille O'Neal. That may not even be a bad movie, honestly. I think it's actually a pretty solid movie, I have to tell you. Neutral Music says, David, if you were part of Biden's team, would you advocate for skipping the debates until Trump's taxes are released? Seems to be fair on some level. Listen, no, not in those terms, but I don't care about conventions or debates. Like at this point, if neither happens, I don't care. November is so clear to me that it doesn't make any difference to me. Thanks to Kenny Redman, who's new member number 2 today, and Candy Martinez, who's new member number 3. Also, Philly Felix. Philly Felix is new member number 4. I will just very briefly mention, I've been doing this only once per stream lately, and the support has just been outpouring. All of the stuff we do, like 3 streams today, plus the podcast, the YouTube channel, all this stuff, it's mostly supported by website memberships. You know, all these different platforms, they're taking slices of support on our website, joinpacman.com. Whenever you sign up, we just pay 2.9% to swipe credit and debit cards, and we keep the rest. It's the most direct way to support us. Early this month, several hundred people canceled their memberships because of what's going on with the virus. And we've been trying to dig out from that. And we've done a great job of starting to do that. So if you are in the boat where $1.50 or $2 a month is okay for you, consider grabbing a membership at joinpacman.com. And I'll even give you a better coupon code. 2020 Now is a beautiful coupon code, powerful coupon code. July Surprise, all lowercase, all one word, okay? It's an even crazier, I can't say it because these Southern governors like Ron DeSantis, these crazy guys, they're failing on coronavirus, but they would come after me for a discount this big. So I'm not even going to tell you what the discount is, but July Surprise as a discount code off of any membership at joinpacman.com is like, it's unprecedented. It's like nothing anybody has ever even conceived of before, to quote Donald Trump. But in all seriousness, if you sign up on my website, I will give you a beautiful thank you during the stream. And I really, in all seriousness, all joking aside, the coupon code is not illegal in Florida or in any state. I so appreciate folks who have been signing up and supporting over the last several weeks. If you're just joining us, we are now 11 minutes late for Kayleigh McEnany. I'm having a problem with my earpiece here. Kayleigh McEnany, I guess announcing what it is that Donald Trump is going to be signing in about an hour. That would be my guess as to why they are holding this earlier than normal press briefing. And we will soon find out about that. Huge thank you to Joseph Rader for gifting 5 subs over on Twitch. We are trying to sort of build our way back up on Twitch subs. Our vacation definitely put a bit of a damper on that, but we are working on it. I want to address some of these other super chats that are coming in. Let's see. Walter says, hey, David, any thoughts on Trump saying the Supreme Court DACA decision gives him more power? I think he's an idiot and he has no idea what he's talking about. Dev Rod says, talking about if COVID has a 1% death rate or a 0.4% death rate is useless. We will never know the true number. For example, too many remote villages around the world where people won't be tested if they die. Yeah, so I did a story yesterday about deaths per capita versus the case fatality rate versus the infection fatality rate. Each one is useful for different things, but the best tool we have for comparing how one country is doing to another is deaths per capita, because you need only know the country's population. You don't need to know the testing level or the level of asymptomatic contagion. And so Trump is trying to use the case fatality rate when in reality, the right metric for what he's talking about is deaths per capita. And that's not so good. If you look at deaths per capita, you will see deaths per million. You will see that the US is 10th in deaths per million. And we are getting very close to Chile, which would put us into 9th for deaths per million. And, San Marino and Andorra are so small that they arguably shouldn't be even included. And so really, we are now 8th and are close to going into 7th if we pass Chile, which we may well do in upcoming days. Stuart Keating asks, do I prefer to play the Sicilian or the Scandinavian? Oh, I'm not going to reveal any of my preferences because I am in training for a tournament and I wouldn't want to give my opponents any advantage. We've got a bunch of people signing up for membership, and I want to thank some of them. We've got Zachary Johnson, who's number 5 today. Kimberly McDonald is number 6. Gregory Gettleson is new member number 7 on my website. Iris Noble is new member number 8. William Rodewald, number 9. Thanks for the membership. Jonathan Lipolis is new member number 10. Josh Napier is number 11. Great to see you, Josh. Christopher Shipman is new member number 12. Also, can't forget Sean McCloskey at number 13. Paul Roger at number 14. Richard Wright and Dan Labuono get us to 16. And then I, of course, would be remiss not to mention Andrew Stryker, new member number 17. Per Newberger, I believe that is the 4th member we have named Per. And Liz Curry and Jake Johnson gets us to 20. Wow. Many things happening here. That is stunning. Unbelievable. Okay. Toby Oft says, thanks so much for your work, David. I watch every video and want to throw extra support your way. Keep it up. Thank you. I appreciate that. Jen Twitters says, who do you find more loathsome, Sarah Huckabee or Kayleigh McEnany? Equally, I guess. Zachary Foster, do you see the Oxford vaccine as Trump's Hail Mary before he hopefully gets voted out? Well, yeah, the crazy thing is Trump's Hail Mary is nothing that has anything to do with him. In other words, Trump's hoping for a treatment or a vaccine, which will have nothing to do with him, to give him something to take credit for. And unfortunately, because so many of his followers are incompetent, they're going to fall for it. And that's a really sad thing. Let me say thanks to Benihas22 for the Twitch Prime sub, Tark97 for the Tier 1 subscription, and Harley Girl 40 has also subscribed with Twitch Prime. The coupon code only works on my website. The coupon code does not work on Twitch. I see people saying they're unable to find where on Twitch you put the coupon code. It doesn't go on coupon code on Twitch. It goes on my website. A lot of crazy things are going on here. Yeah, geez. As far as we know, we are still scheduled for 16 minutes ago. We now have multiple streams live in the room. I think we can start pinching off some of these streams. And my preference is the White House feed. So we will go up on volume there. I do want to make sure all of my audio properties are connected. Oh, they are not. Very good. So now, there we go. Good. We're ready to go, and we are standing by for this stream. Remember, if you are just joining me on YouTube, I would love it if you would just hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. It's free, and it really does a lot for us. And our subscriptions have been off the charts. We're at 888,000. And likewise, we are... Oh, here we go. Let's see what's going on. Hello, everybody.
Good morning, everyone. By any objective standard, the violence, chaos, and anarchy in Portland is unacceptable. Yet Democrats continue to put politics above peace while this president seeks to restore law and order. Governor Kate Brown, a Democrat governor of Oregon, said that the president should, quote, stop playing politics, called law enforcement officers secret police, and likened it to, quote, a dictatorship. The governor also called on the president to get his officers off the streets. Democrat Mayor of Portland, Todd Wheeler, said the president is trying to look strong for his base, while you had Democrats on the Hill, Nancy Pelosi, calling these officers stormtroopers, and Jim Clyburn calling them the Gestapo.
So real quick, they want to create confrontations to then make the left seem dangerous, to take attention away from failed coronavirus and economic leadership. That's the strategy. We predicted it. It's happening.
The governor and the Democrat mayor are unwilling to admit that they have lost control of their city. The well-organized mob in Portland has become increasingly aggressive, especially against law enforcement officers. Individuals have thrown bricks, chunks of concrete, glass bottles, feces, balloons filled with paint, pig's feet, slingshots to hurl ball bearings, and batteries at federal agents and the courthouse. Multiple attempts to barricade officers in the Hatfield courthouse have occurred, attempts to start the structure on fire as well. Use of eyesight-damaging laser devices have been used, and strobe lights against federal agents as well. But according to Speaker Pelosi, when asked about the violent removal...
I'm telling you, they're going to keep deploying these troops to create violent confrontations, to keep talking about it and not the problems that they've caused.
...to restore law and order. Operation Legend is a great example of this. At the governor's request, we went into Kansas City and surged the area with federal assets, FBI, DEA, ATF, and U.S. Marshals. This was named after Legend Taliaferro, a 4-year-old young boy who lost his life and was shot in his bed tragically. This has been a successful operation that has been waged in his name, including the arrest of wanted fugitives. Similarly, President Trump is taking action in Portland, even though you have a Democrat mayor and Democrat governor unwilling to work with us in this situation. We are surging resources, along with Secretary Wolf at DHS, and augmenting the Federal Protective Service to safeguard federal property. The bottom line is that this president stands with law and order, which leads to peace, and we will not allow Portland to become the new CHOP like what we saw in Seattle.
Very much wrong. The presence of these no-badge troops is actually making the violence worse.
The case of Navy veteran Christopher David, who went down because he said he wanted to talk to the law enforcement officers and ask them about the oath of office that they took. He was, as people saw on videotape, he was beaten with a baton. He had pepper spray sprayed in his face. He now has 2 broken bones in his hand. Is the president aware of what happened to this Navy veteran graduate of the Naval Academy? And does he condone that kind of action by these law enforcement officers?
Yeah, I'm aware of the details of that situation. Haven't heard the audio of the video, though I've seen it, and I'd refer you to DHS about the extenuating details. We always encourage the appropriate use of force, and we also encourage those in the area to remain peaceful towards our law enforcement officers.
And my second question is, where in the Constitution does the president derive the authority to send federal law enforcement officers to the streets of American cities against the will of the elected officials in those cities?
Beautiful question.
Yes, well, what you're referring to is Portland, and 40 U.S. Code 1315 gives DHS the ability to deputize officers in any department or agency, like ICE, Custom and Border Patrol, and Secret Service, quote, as officers and agents. They can be deputized for the duty of, in connection with the protection of property owned or occupied by the federal government and persons on that property. And when
they have been beating the hell out of people nowhere near federal property, so that's the way they're hiding behind it.
I think that falls pretty well within the limits of 40 U.S. Code 13.
It does not.
That's a matter of protecting federal property, like federal courthouse in the case of Portland. Does he see limitations to that power? Right. How far does that power extend into the streets of the city of Portland? What are there limitations on that?
So
that authority to protect a federal property.
Under the law, we believe that agents can conduct investigations of crimes committed against federal property or federal officers. And in the case where you have someone shooting off a commercial-grade firework and then running across the street, we don't believe that extends past our jurisdiction. Yes.
Kayleigh, thank you. Yesterday, the president tweeted out an image of himself wearing a mask. He said that wearing a mask is an act of patriotism. No one is more patriotic than him. Then just hours later, he was spotted at the Trump Hotel not wearing a mask. Why did it take him so long, first of all, to be seen wearing a mask in public? And why the mixed messaging on this critical health issue that his own top health officials have said is critical to fighting this pandemic.
The president's always been consistent on this.
Total
that
consistency.
Masks, according to the CDC, are recommended but not required. He has said that he would wear one in the case he couldn't appropriately socially distance. And he wore one and put up the picture on Twitter, as you saw.
Does he think that it's important to lead by example on this issue?
Well, the president has led. He's been consistent, even going back to March 31st when he said...
Yeah, guys, he led. He didn't wear a mask at all until this weekend. And then now that we have nearly 2 million active cases, now he's wearing one out of desperation. Don't you get it?
Wore a mask in May. The president wore a mask at Walter Reed out of an abundance of caution. But as I've made clear from this podium, the president is the most tested man in America. He's tested more than anyone, multiple times a day.
Doctors
we
shocked
believe
by his
that
test
he's acting
results.
appropriately.
Let me ask you about the federal stimulus, if I might. Negotiations are ongoing. Why is the White House blocking Republicans' requests for more funding for testing and contact tracing? Senator Roy Blunt saying it just doesn't make sense. I think that's just wrong.
So no one is blocking any money from testing. One of the things I would add is that this is an ongoing negotiation. We're just
Binder
in the
time.
early days of that. Currently in federal coffers, we have $10 billion, that's with a B, unspent, that is allocated for testing. And we want to ensure that in phase 4, there is money that is targeted
Allocated.
for testing in the way that makes most sense.
Republicans say they need that money. Is the president willing to come to the table?
We're willing to put in money for targeted testing that makes sense, not just dumping money into a pot that already contains $10 billion.
Kayleigh, there's very little support in Congress for a payroll tax cut, but the president keeps pushing for it. Why is that so important to him? How does a payroll tax cut help the 25 million Americans out of work?
It helps him actually make the case we have to gut Social Security and Medicare. That's why he wants it.
The unemployment benefits, where, as Secretary Mnuchin said, we want this to be completed before July 31st, the date that runs out. We don't want something to be an incentive where someone gets overpaid and has a disincentive from going back to work, where they get paid more on unemployment benefits than at work. So we want to be cautious about that while making sure that those unemployed are taken care of. But the payroll tax in particular goes to some of our hardest working Americans, the people that it benefits. If you look at the tax structure.
I have an entire segment debunking this payroll tax holiday thing, and it's really important that everybody understand it. So check that clip out on my YouTube channel.
Is their burden. So it's a very smart policy.
Those are people who still have jobs, so wouldn't it be more important to focus on the people who don't if you're worried about the overall cost of this
Beautiful
stimulus?
We
question.
can focus on a number of things at once, and part of that's a payroll tax for middle and low-income Americans who are out there working each and every day and making their way through as best they can. It also means unemployment benefits. It also means direct payments to Americans. So we're looking at all of that, and we would like to see all of that.
The second question on the briefing today at 5 o'clock, should we expect to see members of the coronavirus task force? Will Dr. Fauci, will Dr. Birx be there?
You'll have to tune in to see. Yes.
Thank you.
Tune in tonight.
On Portland, on sending agents to Portland, as well as plans for Chicago, why are these the right people to send? My understanding, these agents often work on human smuggling, drug trafficking, things like that. Do they have the right skill set, whether it's gun violence in Chicago or quelling unrest in Portland?
They're arguably
Well, first,
the
let me
worst
add,
people to
they
send.
haven't been sent to Chicago. These DHS officials are currently in Portland protecting a courthouse. We do believe they're the right individuals for that, as does 40 U.S.C. 1315, the United States Code. It's egregious what's happening. The frequency jammers, the pellet and air rifles in Portland. It's being depicted as this peaceful scene. I can assure
Jammers.
you, it's anything but that. Where you've had barricades trying
They're sending in federal coffers to cough on people.
me courthouse, injury to a Border Patrol team member's leg, injuries to the head, shoulder, and back of a deputy U.S. Marshal. A U.S. Marshal impaled his right hand on a board filled with nails set out by the protesters. This is not a peaceful scene. I'm very thankful to our U.S. Marshals and
It's gotten dramatically less peaceful since they sent in the federal troops.
protecting a federal building and doing so at great cost to themselves. Yes.
Thanks, Kayleigh. I have two questions for you on the stimulus. First, since you guys are committed to the payroll tax cut, that seems to be driving up the price tag of the whole package. So is the White House view the $1 trillion figure that's been cited by GOP leaders as a hard cap? Are you willing to sign something that would spend?
He's not going to get in front of the
These
president.
are all preliminary discussions, so I'll leave it to the negotiators to decide. The $1 trillion number was cited by Secretary Mnuchin yesterday. But look, this is the beginning stages. We're looking at a number of things, but the president was very clear that he would like to see a payroll tax in there, along with liability protections, tax credits for businesses to bring people back to work, and to have safe.
He wants a ton of stuff that makes no sense.
$1 million for schools to reopen safely, at least $70 billion.
And then on the testing piece, what did the long wait times that we're seeing for tests around the country suggest that we do need a massive influx of testing beyond what's unspent, and that the federal government should take more control of the...
Here in Massachusetts, we only have 200 to 300 cases a day. There's still a 5 to 7 day delay to get your test results.
In a way that it gets to the right people who need testing at the right time, not just dumping money into a bucket. So we want more money. We want it to be targeted. But I'm glad you brought up the timing of the testing. I talked to Dr. Birx, and she's very encouraged by the pool testing that's being
Birx
worked
can't
on.
be trusted.
You can run 4 to 5 times as many tests in the same period of time by decreasing turnaround times at a minimum of 2/3. So if you took 3 days to get a test result, it goes down to less than 1. If it took 6 days, it goes down to less than 2. And it's more labor intensive. So they would need to hire additional personnel, but CMS is funding the test at about 4 times the actual test costs to ensure technicians and PPE requirements can be met. So we are seeing encouraging signs.
Sounds like everything's great, guys. Don't worry.
Just going back to the Portland situation, what is sort of the policy justification for federal officers not identifying their agency and their arrest authority when they take a protester into custody?
Perfect question.
So I've been told by DHS that there is insignia indicating that they're law enforcement. They, in the case you're referencing, did identify themselves to the individual being obtained, but that they don't identify themselves to crowds because it would put them at great risk. And I think you can see that, as I noted, when they're sticking their hands into boards left out by some of the rioters. Yes.
Hey, Kayleigh. On June 16th, a little more than a month ago, the White House, via the Vice President, published an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. The op-ed said that the media has tried to scare the American people about the coronavirus. It talked about low positivity rates and declining case numbers in half of the states. There have been 25,000 additional deaths since that was published. Does the White House still stand by that op-ed? And then just more generally, what happened here at the White House and the administration in the last month when the message was that this was a problem that was on the mend and being addressed, until now with the exploding cases we've seen and 141,000 deaths?
Well, the White House has always been very clear-eyed that as we reopen, we would see embers and in some cases fires.
Embers and fires. We are now at the peak. Like, the worst time is now. Embers.
9 states. She does a lot of extraordinary work on that front. So we've been clear-eyed that as we reopen, we would see embers and sometimes fires. But we're encouraged that when you look at case fatality, for instance, we're below the European Union. We're below the average of the world.
Remember, case fatality just tells us relative to testing what are the deaths, and that's not relevant. We got to look at deaths per capita. We're 10th highest in the world.
In testing in the world is India at 13.79 million.
Do you still see the main problem, as the op-ed pointed out, as the media trying to scare the American people over coronavirus?
I think in many cases the media has tried to scare the American people. I think there's
media
been
page.
a deficit in reporting about the cost of staying shut down, for instance. When you have the fact that the American Cancer Society saying that during the pandemic we saw an 80% drop in cancer cases being identified, there are real costs to a draconian extended shutdown, and you never heard the other side of the health equation.
Those are real problems, but you can deal with that by saying we're keeping A, B, C, D shut, but right now doctors' offices are places where you should be going for screenings if you have a symptom, because we don't want to be diagnosing things. Like, you can deal with that. It's not just we're shut down so cancer doesn't get diagnosed, or it's wide open.
To the American people. Yes.
Yeah, the president says he wants to send these forces to other cities like Chicago. Cities where the federal property isn't necessarily under attack. What are they going to do when they get to Chicago and these other cities with higher
people in
crime
unmarked
rates,
vans,
higher shooting rates, higher murder rates? If the president's worried about that, what are they going to do? What are they going to arrest people
Right.
with?
I think you're getting ahead of the president here. He's
Charges.
He's made no announcements as to who's going where. He's very discouraged by the violence that he's seen in Chicago. It's why he sent a very strong letter to Mayor Lightfoot offering help because she's clearly unable to control her streets.
Big, strong letter.
And the governor as well, unable to control that area. When you see
the mere idea of a problem and Trump swooping in to solve it is antithetical to everything we know about Trump. Like, at the top level, if there's a problem and Trump is proposed to be solving it, you should already be skeptical.
Citizenry of Chicago, where 12 were murdered this weekend, 70 shot alone. It's incredible what we're seeing in Chicago. He's offered his help, and we encourage the mayor to take it and to be forthright about the situation in her state, much like the governor of Missouri was in working with us on Operation Legend to protect the people of Missouri.
But the leaders of these cities don't necessarily want unmarked police officers patrolling their streets.
They'll send them in.
We've seen in Portland with the premise that they're protecting federal property.
Yeah, they don't care.
The leaders in these cities don't want this sort of paramilitary police force.
They're offered the assistance of DOJ, as was done, where you've had FBI surge in the case of Operation Legend. So when you have each weekend more than a dozen people getting shot in your city, perhaps it's time, more than a dozen killed, I should say, and children, perhaps it's time to say, I need the help of the federal government because what I'm doing is simply not working when more people are dying on the streets of Chicago than Afghanistan and Iraq. It's a tragedy.
What if they don't say that?
Yes, Stephen.
Thank you. Well, I have a question about New York on a similar topic. Yesterday, President Trump mentioned the spike in violent crime in New York and said, quote, if the governor is not going to do something about it, we'll do something about it. And I'm curious if you could explain why he's saying that the governor should do something about it rather than the mayor, and if you could also elaborate on what President Trump would be willing to do.
Well, he thinks the mayor and the governor should work together to take control of the streets of New York City, where in some places we've seen 600% surge in violence over last year. So he thinks they should work together.
By the way, I hope you guys know that a lot of this surge in violence stuff they're attributing to the defunding and abolishment of police. That hasn't happened in any of these places. And really the reason that violence is up is people are desperate. The economy, when the economy isn't going well, when unemployment is high, when people aren't earning money or are unable to make their housing payments, as 32% were unable to do on July 1st, that increases crime. And so they're saying, oh, look at these Dems abolishing defunding. Now we've got crime. That hasn't happened. What's going on are crimes of desperation here.
Because of social distancing. Governor Gavin Newsom was one of the few Democratic governors to bring in the National Guard and arm them after the riots and looting in early June, as compared to Seattle, where they didn't arm the National Guard. The Guard was posted at Los Angeles City Hall as a show of force, and within days the violence had quelled. Why not just invoke the Insurrection Act and have a big show of force rather than these more secretive operations?
So I'll leave that to the president. We don't have secretive operations going on. It's very clear what's going on in Portland. It's very clear what's happening in Kansas City. But with regard to the Insurrection Act, look, we believe that it should be governors and mayors doing what they have the constitutional power to do. The police power rests with them. So it's up to this president whether he ever decides to invoke that. But governors and mayors really need to step it up, particularly in Democrat cities where Democrat streets are out of control.
And then the one from my colleague, John Gizzi at Newsmax, is asking, what are the president's thoughts on John Kasich supporting Joe Biden in his plans to appear at the convention?
What was that? I didn't hear the last
John Kasich is supporting Joe Biden, and he plans to attend the convention and support the Democratic
Beta Republican John Kasich
campaign, but this president's quite proud of his record in the Republican Party and quite proud to have the support of 96% of the party, more than any predecessor in the history of the Republican
That's
Party.
a lie.
Yes.
Thanks, Kayleigh. You said earlier that the president was tested multiple times a day. We knew he was tested daily, but can you elaborate on that? How many times a day is he tested?
He's tested often. I'm not going to read out exactly how many times he's tested a day, but sometimes it is more than one time a day.
Why not tell us?
Yesterday, the president said that when he was previously doing briefings, we had a lot of people watching, record numbers watching in the history of cable television. And I was wondering if ratings are factoring into his decision to restart the briefing.
This president wants to speak to the public.
And if he is the best person to get accurate information about the virus out to the public, given previous statements at briefings like his speculation that disinfectants inside the human body could work as a treatment, which medical experts say is not the case, and claims that the virus will just disappear.
Well, the president is the right person to give information to the American people. He was elected by the American people.
Yeah.
He's been a leader on this. The fact that we've outproduced on ventilators, so much so that we have an extraordinary number in our stockpile, and we're giving ventilators out.
Notice that at this point, ventilators is their escape pod. Any question that gets at Trump's incompetence, they mention ventilators and launch the escape pod.
Phase 3 clinical trial that because of him, we have remdesivir and convalescent plasma and dexamethasone. And
we don't have those things because of Trump, and dexamethasone has been around who knows how long. It's insane.
Boy, does he get the information to a lot of the American people during his briefings.
Imagine claiming that we have dexamethasone because of Trump. It's like saying we have aspirin because of Trump.
Is planning additional tariffs against Europe in the old dispute about aerospace subsidies. Is the president committed to impose additional sanctions, considering that Europe would answer with additional sanctions, tariffs as well?
So since that's pre-decisional, I won't get ahead on any administration announcements on that front. Yes.
Kayleigh, I have a couple of questions. The first one is the president in the last few hours tweeted about the concerns about mail-in voting. So he's obviously concerned about the integrity of the U.S. election and certainly internal sabotage. But why are we not hearing from the president about the fears about external sabotage? For example, coming out of the UK today, there's a parliamentary committee report that says that Russia influenced the Scottish referendum. There are questions about Brexit. But we've really not heard the president put the Kremlin on notice with respect to the U.S. election.
This president's been tougher on Russia than anybody.
The president's put the world on notice that our election systems must be secure. This is under this president in 2018. He articulated the first full cyber strategy for the United States since 2003. In 2019, he extended the National Emergency Declaration on Foreign Election Interference. He routinely engages with Congress on election security, participating in at least 26 elections security-specific hearings. He signed legislation, $71 million.
Yeah, this is a question about something now, and she's listing things Trump did in 2018.
The Obama-Biden administration, who, when told of meddling in 2016, did nothing. And in fact, Susan Rice told the White House cyber team to stand down and, quote, knock it off when they floated
Wow, going back to Hillary 4 years ago, questions about Trump doing something right now.
Daniel has confirmed the stand down order.
It's been in office now more than 3 years.
She's trying to do a walk-up.
What's been done now?
She's
And given these fresh concerns, what are we going to hear from the president on that?
So what's been done now? I just listed off 3 or 4 things for you, and I'm happy to go through more. We can talk about the $71 million in legislation on election security. We can talk about the $15 million for election reform activities. We can talk about legislation making more than $805 million available to states. And when it comes to mail-in voting, I would point you to the fact that there's a Wall Street Journal article just out today, and it talks about the dark omen for November and the
Oh my God. I'm actually starting to personally hate this woman, even though normally I kind of keep a distance from this stuff.
We still don't know who the winners are of some of those races, and Governor Cuomo decided that he would prepay postage for the ballots, and what that meant was that the post office didn't put a postage stamp noting the date of the ballot. So as they're collecting these ballots in for a month, as you asked me about this, so I'm going to answer.
That's not true. It's still stamped when it's processed.
Ballots with no postmark date, and in fact, what they found is 19% of ballots have been rejected in Queens.
That's idiotic. If you put a stamp on it, if I send somebody a self-addressed stamped envelope, when they mail it and it's processed, it gets stamped with the date. This is so stupid. She doesn't seem to know how mail works.
Yes.
On the China vaccine research, this is very
you've gotten 2 questions,
Russia
which is more than some of your colleagues. Yes.
Thank you, Kayleigh.
Okay, you don't want to.
OAM now.
In St. Louis, the McCloskeys have been charged with felonies for waving guns at protesters.
Is that her natural hair color?
Is vowing to dismiss these charges. Where does the president stand on this?
Yeah, the president, I asked him about that this morning, and he said it is absolutely absurd what is happening to the McCloskeys. He noted that this is an extreme abuse of power by the prosecutor, and noteworthy that the prosecutor, there have been many cases brought to her attention of violent rioters that she's failed to charge, but instead she's charging the individuals who are defending themselves from violent protesters. You have 300 to 500 protesters who stormed the gates, tore down the gates, and trespassed on their property, and you have Patricia McCloskey McCloskey, who said that they were telling her they were going to kill them, these protesters. At the moment they were waving their guns to protect themselves. They were going to come in here, she said. They were going to burn down the house. They were going to be living in our house after I was dead. And they were pointing to different rooms of the house saying, that's going to be my bedroom, that's going to be my living room, and I'm going to be taking a shower in that room. So they were completely within their right, and it's an egregious abuse of power on the part of the McCloskeys. Turning to a different note, I just wanted to highlight some great work being done by senior advisor Ivanka Trump. There are nearly 40 million boxes that have been put together by the Farmers to Family Food Box Program, a great partnership to help families in need in this country. And yesterday you had Ivanka Trump visiting the DC Dream Center and personally distributing a number of food boxes. The distribution resulted in 1,000 boxes delivered to the DC community. And we thank Ivanka for the great work that she has done there. And finally, I just wanted to note something on COVID. Dr. Birx is an extraordinary doctor who served this country, dedicated her time to serving our country as an Army colonel. She served as an ambassador to PEPFAR, where she spent her life fighting AIDS and HIV abroad. And it is appalling, the attack that I saw on her in the New York Times based on no facts.
Oh,
and Dr.
God.
Birx, for weeks, has been
Birx
sending
has
out
been carrying water for Trump for months.
100 pages of data to our governors so that they have the best information to make the best decisions for their people in their respective states. I've not seen anyone pouring.
Are they going to frame this as an attack on women?
And the attack on her was frankly appalling and egregious, and the New York Times
She's
should be very
gathering her
ashamed
stuff
of
to
themselves.
leave.
Kayleigh, what is the president signing at 12:15?
What an embarrassment. What a complete and total embarrassment. Unbelievable. Just stunning, stunning, stunning. Can you imagine? We have to remove these people in November. We have to remove these people. It is imperative. It is imperative for, we can recover from 4 years of this. 8 years is, she just left. It just, everything about this is crazy. This is completely crazy. So I'm going to be streaming again in about 4 hours. Donald Trump is resuming coronavirus press briefings later today. So I'm going to be back. And then I'm going to have a third stream later tonight on Twitch only with Alexandra Botez training me for my upcoming chess tournament. So if you're watching on Twitch, make sure to follow so you'll be notified of the next stream in a few hours. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you will be notified of the next stream in a few hours. And I will be back with all of you very, very soon.